the Millie Maker Roundtable here on Run Fear Sports, free this week. So any new watchers, new listeners, thanks for tuning in. I'm DraftCheat, of course, and joined as always Bobby Gomes and Snyder. Snyder, what's going on, man?
Hey, just getting over watching that Alabama-Georgia SEC title game. I mean, that was a pretty good game. I mean, it's hard to imagine betting against Nick Saban when he's an underdog. He just won another game by double digits as an underdog. It's pretty crazy. I think that's 4 in a row for him. We got some pretty good stuff going on in the college slate. I don't know if you guys pay attention to it or not, but there was a big bust early in the MAC game that everybody was rostering, and that Bama game kind of shot off, and then we got another game coming up here at the Pitt and Wake Forest game, so that'll be interesting. It's starting right now as well.
Yeah, good day of college football. Didn't catch much of it myself. Maybe watch Big Ten Championship tonight too, I think, right?
Yeah, yep, that's starting now.
So maybe check that after the show. Bobby, how's your Saturday going? What's going on, man?
Yeah, it's going good. Just looking through the slate. Interesting slate. We just got the Minshew news. We'll kind of touch on that in a bit. But yeah, having a good day overall. Happy to hop on here with you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to change it up a little bit for those who have watched the show previously. We've gone game by game. We're going to go position by position today, just mixing it up a little bit and freshen up the show. And with that, we'll dive right into it, starting, of course, at the quarterback position. We do have, an 11-game slate? So, yeah, a good number of games. Obviously tomorrow on the main slate. Highest priced quarterback on the slate is Lamar Jackson, 7,800. Obviously coming off of 2 pretty bad games where he really didn't do a whole lot. Gets a tough matchup in Pittsburgh. Personally, I don't really see paying all the way up for Lamar Jackson on the slate, but certainly contrarian option. Kyler Murray perhaps going to make his return. I think he's going to play against Chicago, but again, I don't love that. Matt Stafford dealing with some injuries, and then Tom Brady, 7,200. And then the only other QB over 7K is Jalen Hurts, who is he officially ruled out, Bobby? You said you got that news. Is Minshew going to start, right?
Minshew's going to start, yeah. So that's pretty important news, I would say.
Yeah, so Minshew starting for the Eagles. Obviously, that affects their whole offense, but Minshew himself at 4K on DraftKings, I'm tempted. So get interested to hear your guys' takes there. But let's start with that 7K plus range at quarterback. So we know Lamar, Stafford, Brady, playing, and perhaps Kyler in there as well. Bobby, any interest in going all the way up top at quarterback this week?
Yeah, so Pittsburgh's going to have guys missing from the D-line. The issue for me with rostering Jackson, I think he's a good play if you want to pay up top. But I think the construction's kind of going down towards, like, the Minshew news. So yeah. I don't know how owned Jackson's going to be, but, like, Jackson's had issues with teams blitzing him up the middle. Pittsburgh kind of blitzes at a very high rate. So I don't know how much Jackson I think I'll have. I'd be more inclined to play Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady was going to be like the cash game optimal QB for a lot of people. With prior to the Minshew news, I still think he'll be very highly owned. That team totals just moved 2 points. He's difficult to play. Like I feel like I would have had to play him with Godwin, who's also going to be chalk, but then Evans. And if I played them with the 2, it would have been pretty chalky in general in terms of like cumulative ownership. So I think in a scenario like that, I would have been running it back with like a Patterson or a Pitts for that. Like that's how I would have built it. The only way I would not run it back is if I built them with Fournette and Godwin, or Fournette and Evans. That would be like the ownership that I think would differentiate it. My favorite QB from the top range, though, is Stafford. I think Stafford's in a great spot to bounce back. Everyone kind of down on him. He's been injured or however he's doing. This is a great matchup versus the Rams.
Yeah, Stafford, big game against Green Bay in the loss, 27 DraftKings points there. Brady, big disappointment last week. I think he was the most popular quarterback, especially on FanDuel, I believe he was. Godwin didn't work out. It's tough, when you're paying these top price tags for quarterbacks, and then the receivers are expensive too. A lot has to go right for that to work out. Obviously, trying to win a million maker, a lot has to go right in general. But obviously, the higher you pay up for some of these stacks, the more they have to do. So I like the Stafford call. Lamar, I mean, I assume he's going to be Snyder, sub 5% probably.
I think he's going to be a little more popular maybe on FanDuel than DraftKings,
Sure.
but I think he'll be I don't think he'll be over 10%. I mean, he'll probably be in that 7 to 9% range if I had to guess. I mean, for some reason, people still like going to him for all that rushing upside, but I really don't like him in this Pittsburgh matchup.
Yeah.
I mean, when these two teams play, I mean, it's usually a pretty tough, hard-nosed game. I mean, it's usually like a 3-point game either way, usually somewhere like a 14-17 type game. I mean, this is basically just like an all-out war between these teams. It doesn't matter how good one of the teams is. It's such a rivalry that they just leave it all out there, and it's such a slow paced game usually. So I don't think I'll be going to Lamar or Kyler. I don't mind Stafford there, like Bobby was talking about. I think that's a solid play. I mean, I like Stafford, and I like Cup more on FanDuel, as I think it's easier to fit him over there with we've got quite a bit of value at the running back position, as we'll get into later, but I think that makes a lot of sense. My favorite guy in this range is Tom Brady. This is the cheapest price we've seen him since, I think, early October, and he's in a great spot here in the Dome against these Falcons. We've seen these Falcons defense. They've gave up a lot of points to passing games throughout the last 6-7 weeks, and I think this is a great get-right spot for Brady here. He's kind of been on the bad side of touchdown variance here lately. He had those 2 games where he went back-to-back 4 TD games, and then it's kind of been on the bad side of TD variance the last few games. So I think this is a great get-right spot for Brady here. I mean, he did play the Falcons earlier this year in Tampa, and he dropped 5 touchdowns on them. So I think something like that could be in the cards here as well.
Yeah, indoors for Tom Brady, always a plus, obviously playing in that Dome in Atlanta. Stafford, my biggest worry with him, Bobby, is can the Jaguars keep up, right? Obviously a pretty good Rams defense. And then, I mean, the Jaguars offense just looks horrible. Like Trevor Lawrence, to me, just doesn't get it going. So I'm worried, traveling across the country, crappy coaching, and then, Stafford a little bit banged up, so I'm just worried. Will they really keep their foot on the gas pedal in a blowout with a banged up quarterback? I'm not necessarily sure I want to go there myself. I get it. Great matchup, obviously, against the Jaguars. Tom Brady, no problem going there. And yeah, that's the 7K plus quarterbacks on DraftKings. The guys we have in the 6K range: Justin Herbert going into Cincinnati, Kirk Cousins going into Detroit, Russell Wilson, who has been pretty damn awful, 6,400 for him at home against San Francisco. Joe Burrow in that Chargers matchup. Carson Wentz, 6,100 in Houston, good matchup for him. And then Derek Carr, who's had some big games off and on this season. Actually, one of the leaders in deep passes, that kind of thing. He's 6K hosting the football team. So Carr, Wentz, Burrow, Wilson, Cousins, Herbert. I'll throw it to you first, Snyder. Who are you looking at in this price range?
Yeah, up in this range, I've got Justin Herbert as the top raw projected guy in this range, and I like Herbert as upside. He's going to chuck the ball downfield. I mean, him and Keenan Allen, he's got that Mike Williams for the deep threat and the tight ends there as well for him there. With this Bengals defense has been all right as of late, but I think they're definitely beatable, and this total it is a 50-point total in this game. It's a 3-point spread. I expect this to be a close game. I think both of these pass offenses could go off here. I think this is a good game to stack up if you're looking at from that point. So I like Justin Herbert. Kirk Cousins, he's in that noon time slot, and when he's in that noon time slot, it's like something else just clicks. I mean, he just turns into like Superman in this noon time slot. Once you get him outside of that, kind of goes downhill, it seems like. So I definitely like going to Cousins. It's kind of tough to play the Cousins doubles now as Thielen's price is getting up there and Jefferson's price is getting up there, but I definitely like Justin Jefferson, just like week in, week out. I love putting him in there. He's on that top tier of wide receivers in the league. Definitely think he's in play every single week, and now he gets to go up against this bad Lions team. I think he did well last week. I think, or last time he played him, I think he had over 100 yards and like 7 catches, but we'll get there later. Definitely Cousins. Not really looking to Russell Wilson. He just doesn't look right to me this year. But Joe Burrow's right there with that Justin Herbert. Depending on which way you want to stack up that game, I have no problem going to either of these two guys there. Carson Wentz at Houston. He's playing in a dome again like he usually is. This Houston defense is bad. I think this is a good spot for Wentz to go off here. We've seen Wentz play good in some of these poorer matchups when he's going up against some poor defenses, and I think this is a good spot for him to get us. I think 23 to 26 points is a likely outcome for him in this game, and so those are the guys I'd be looking at.
Yeah, I like that Cincinnati Chargers call. You know, if I was going to push back at all on that one, it would just be that the Chargers' run defense has been terrible. Joe Mixon's been going off, right? And you could see I think it kind of seems like that's Cincinnati's, preferred method of victory is to really lean on Joe Mixon. So that's kind of where I think I'm going to go in that game. But I get it with the, Burrow, Herbert. Obviously, if you want to go for the full game stack there, it makes a lot of sense. Weapons on both sides. Big play weapons too, right? Like that's obviously a thing that can really get there for stacks is you score, big Mike Williams touchdown or obviously Jamar Chase. You've been on him for much of the year, Snyder. He scores a long touchdown and the other team gets the ball back. It's a good way for a game stack to get there. I'll throw it to you here, Bobby, in a second. I really like Kirk Cousins here too. I know you mentioned him, Snyder. I was on him last week, got off to a really good start, slowed down in the second half. But one thing with Cousins, I mean, you mentioned the noon time a lot. Like, I don't try not to buy into stuff like that too much, but it's certainly been true for Cousins in particular. And the biggest thing, though, Cousins, if you look at like his splits under pressure or clean pocket, if you give Kirk Cousins a clean pocket, he carves up defenses, right? With Thielen and Jefferson, like he can put the ball on the money. It's when you get pressure on him that he just completely folds. You see it in big games. Detroit has the worst pass rush in the league. The dead last, 32 out of 32 in adjusted sack rate. So in a dome at the noon time slot, right? Not a lot of eyes on this game, perhaps. So I think Kirk Cousins got a very good chance to go off. And like you said, Snyder, it's expensive. You're playing Cousins. You got to play one for sure of Jefferson and Thielen. I kind of like playing two of those guys. I mean, the double stack because Cousins has to throw he's not going to rush it in. So he's got to throw for 300 plus yards, 3 touchdowns to get there in the tournament. And I'll say this, I think most people in that game are just going right to Alexander Madison, right? Dalvin Cook out, and you get the shiny new toy. It's kind of like the story of the week. One of the stories of the week in fantasy football is when a star running back like Dalvin Cook goes down. Now you have the Madison scenario. We know he's going to get the vast majority of the workload in the backfield for Minnesota. And so I think, Bobby, what most people will do is either a lot of people are going to play Madison, I think, or they just fade the game, right? It's kind of one or the other. And they don't go the opposite direction and take the pass catching stack. We saw it last week with Tampa, right? I didn't play Leonard Fournette, but sometimes the touchdowns go the other way. And if that happens in the Minnesota game, Madison maybe disappoints. There's a lot of good running back these plays, and it's Cousins and the passing game that goes off. So I really do think he's got a chance at a big game here. Love the matchup against Detroit, obviously. But yeah, Bobby, throw it to you for these 6K quarterbacks.
Yeah, love the Cousins call you guys have. Minus 205 to throw over 1.5 touchdowns. For me, like I think about Madison, like DC's hitting on, like Madison's going to be chalk. A Vikings running back hasn't scored over 27 fantasy points pretty much all year. I love Justin Jefferson with this line being what it is. I think we can get a wide receiver position later. I don't know if I'd stack Cousins, but the line gives credence to stacking Cousins with the over 1.5 minus 205, and then his yardage total's pretty high as well. He's 274.5 for his yardage total. So he can definitely hold a double stack. I just don't know if I'd personally get there, but
sure.
It's definitely relevant. Herbert has great props. I think with basically the Minshew news, like I thought Brady was going to be chalk. Minshew, like Herbert would have been behind Brady. I think now Herbert's going to take a decrease in ownership. He has pretty good props as well. I don't mind him. Burrow, I think I'd prefer Herbert to Burrow, but I also think that a lot of people are going to think, oh, Joe Mixon, like he's been crushing. The Chargers' run D is terrible. There could be regression to the mean in terms of his touchdowns, though.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I'd like Burrow and like Chase stacks or CJ Uzoma. those are like the main 6K guys. You can make a case for Carr. I just worry about Carr's potential, like the ceiling for Carr's weapons, right? Like that's something I'm a little skeptical about in terms of playing Carr.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. Cousins for me in this range. Again, either side of that Chargers game, again, kind of like it's a little bit like the Cousins Madison situation that I outlined with Burrow. I think most people in that game are going to want to go to Joe Mixon. Makes sense. That's kind of the way I see it. And maybe even with Herbert, people go to Austin Eckler. So you might get a little bit lower ownership. None of us on Russell Wilson. I do think Wentz is interesting, but it's just hard for me to get away from Jonathan Taylor. It just seems like he's going to do whatever he wants in that game. Go ahead.
It's funny none of us are on Wilson because he could absolutely smash here.
I hate Russell Wilson, man.
I hate him too. But so like I love Elijah Mitchell on this slate, and it makes for a good low-owned stack like Wilson, Metcalf, or Lockett. I don't think you can double stack these guys like we've seen. It's kind of negatively correlated, but now Wilson's at 6,500. He's not at like 7.4 or 7.8 where he's been priced usually. Just I wonder about the finger, and I just despise the calling. So
get him below 6K, and we'll talk again. But I'm not taking.
Yeah, I think I'm done with Russ right now. I mean, he just looks off. I mean, something's wrong there. I'm not sure if he's not putting out full effort or if he's trying to get traded or what the deal is really going on there. But he's definitely not the old Russell Wilson right now.
Yeah, not going there either. So that's the 6K quarterbacks. Let's we'll keep going down. A bunch of quarterbacks priced between 5 and 6K. Jimmy Garoppolo going into Seattle. Matt Ryan. If you think Tom Brady and the Bucs are going to put up points, maybe Matt Ryan can keep pace. Taylor Heineke in Las Vegas, I think, is at least interesting at 5,600. Tua Tagovailoa is 5,500 at home against the Giants. Daniel Jones sitting out that game. We're going to see the giraffe, the long neck, Mike Glennon get the start. He's below 5K as he should be. We'll see if Colt McCoy's in there or Kyler Murray, 5,400. Tyrod Taylor, 5,300 against the Colts in a game that Houston's probably going to have to put up points in that game if they want to compete. I think he's a little bit interesting with upside. Andy Dalton going to get another start for the injured Justin Fields, hosting the Cardinals. Jared Goff, 5,200. Again, I kind of like that Detroit Vikings game. Both defenses just not very good right now. Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, 5,100 against Philly. Trevor Lawrence, talked about him a little bit, 5,100 going into LA. I'm not a Fields believer at the moment. And then Big Ben Roethlisberger, 5K even, Pittsburgh hosting Baltimore. So a lot of dust there, Bobby, at least in my opinion. I don't see a ton of guys there that I'm overly excited about. So talk me into some of these lower priced quarterbacks.
Yeah, I actually love Heineke on this slate.
Okay.
He has great props. He's going into a dome situation. He's also leveraged. Like if you stack him with either Thomas or McLaurin, he's leverage off the 40% owned or it looks like Antonio Gibson's projecting out to like be very, very highly owned at his price tag. And you just have to weigh the opportunity cost of playing him. And I think Heineke in that set, Heineke's over 1.5 touchdowns, minus 130. I think that contradicts the Gibson chalk. Gibson hasn't been utilized as like that 3-down back. I still, even with McKissick out, don't think he'll find that role. So I think Heineke's good leverage. These other lower-owned guys, Ben at 5K, like this Baltimore defense is absolutely terrible. So if you're telling me you want to play Ben, Chase, and Deontay or Najee, like I wouldn't like discredit you for saying like you wanted to go there and maybe running it back with a Baltimore guy. No one's going to play that stack.
Yeah.
And then Minshew, I think we should probably just Minshew's like looks like the cash game QB. Like you can get Jonathan Taylor, you can get Cup. So if I'm like Mangone's probably in his house right now, like totally 6 to midnight over this Minshew being able to get Jonathan Taylor and Cup and Gibson and Godwin in the same lineup. So Minshew's interesting. Maybe Devontae Smith's an interesting stack option. That's pretty much it, though, from this lower range.
Yeah. The low 5K guys, like you mentioned, Minshew at 4K even. I mean, where do you think he's going to end up ownership wise? I mean, against the Jets, we've seen him play, recently where he's obviously fine. I think he's kind of like a borderline starting caliber NFL quarterback. Where sometimes you get teams, you get like a Mason Rudolph in there who's just absolutely terrible, right? Minshew can play a little bit. Against the Jets, he can almost certainly play, you would think. Certainly the best quarterback on the field in that game. I feel confident saying that. So do we have a prediction, Snyder, where Minshew might come in ownership-wise, and then your thoughts on him and any of those other cheaper quarterbacks as well?
Right now I think he's going to come in probably around 20%. I don't think he's going to get that much higher, though, it's easy to put him in there and everything, but still, if you're going to run those optos and stuff, they're generally going to spread out ownership among these different quarterbacks as everybody's going to be looking to stack up some of these other games. So I still think it's going to be spread out a little bit. Yeah. So I could see it being like 20-25% maybe, but I don't think it's going to get over Howard there. He's been solid, though. He's had 20 starts in Jacksonville, and he had 37 touchdowns to 11 interceptions there. So he's definitely going to chuck the ball around, and I could see it there. He's got Devonta Smith and a couple other guys there. There is Smith there, isn't he? Or did he get hurt? I guess I haven't seen.
He's in there.
That's what I thought. So he's definitely in play for like smaller field stuff. I think it's in cash games. It's definitely going to be more viable there. For this other guys in this lower range, I've been on Jimmy Garoppolo some this year, but he just hasn't shown a ceiling for me, and I'm just done with him. Not going to go back to there on the road. Taylor Heineke he's a solid option here this week. I think 5.6K is a pretty good price tag for him. I like a couple of his pass catchers, and I think that Las Vegas Washington game could shoot out. We've got a pretty high total there. It's at 48, and so I could see myself going there. I don't mind Tua Tagovailoa there too. Him and Waddle have just been connecting pretty well over the recent here. So I definitely could go there. 5.5K. They're at home against the Giants. Pretty poor defense, so I like that. Tyrod Taylor's got that rushing upside. Playing against the Colts defense, they're going to be chucking. They're going to be behind pretty much this whole game. They're 10-point underdogs, but this total is pretty low there. So I think Indianapolis on the ground could be bleeding out that clock quite a bit. So mainly looking to pass that up. I'm not going to play Big Fat Ben in this rivalry game. Couldn't go there. I'm not really looking at any of these other guys either. You got Mike Glennon there at 4K too. I'm just not going to play him. I actually like the defense there against him quite a bit, but as that'll be pretty popular. But for me in this range, it's mainly going to be, I think, Heineke and Tua, and then I'm not sure what I'm going to do with Minshew yet. He'll definitely probably be in my cash game teams, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do with him as far as GPPs and such go.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think Minshew probably the way I would go in cash as well, or will go in cash. All right, let's wrap up quarterback. Which give our favorite play, our most exposure play in the Millie Maker specifically on this slate. So, Bobby, quarterback, Millie Maker, who are you riding with tomorrow?
Taylor Heineke. I think he's going to do well. Like McLaurin, like Thomas, and it's good leverage off Gibson.
Love it. I'm going Kirk Cousins. I'm going to go with that Minnesota double stack. Listen, I just love.
I think that's a great call. I think that's a
clean pocket, and you the ball's going to Thielen and Jefferson every time, right? Like and long passes too, especially to Jefferson. I just see a lot of upside there, and I think Detroit has a decent chance to keep up offensively. And they've got some cheap run back pieces too, right? I don't necessarily want to go with like the Detroit stack, but like you can get a Hawkinson, who's the Josh Reynolds is 3.4K, scored a touchdown on Thanksgiving, so you can get there that way. Snyder, go ahead, Bobby.
Jamal Williams would be chalky in that. So
yeah. We'll get to running back in a second. There are a lot of plays at running back this week. Kind of bizarre, frankly, how many guys are in play. You don't really see that at running back very often. But Snyder, finish off with quarterback here. Who's your guy in the Millie Maker tomorrow.
Yeah, I definitely like attacking this Vikings offense quite a bit there, but I'm going to go with Tom Brady as my top guy in this position here this week. I like the price savings we get on him this week compared to the previous weeks we've had, and I think it's time for a little correction in passing touchdowns here for Tom Brady. Great matchup. I like the two receivers that I'm going to stack him with. We'll talk about them later. One's going to be quite a bit lower owned than the other one, so definitely like Tom Brady in this matchup.
Makes sense. That's quarterback. We're going to jump over to running back. We have just a ton of news, notes, good matchups, and a lot of running backs in play. We talked a little bit about the Vikings already at the quarterback segment. Delvin Cook going to be out this game and at least one more, I think, maybe potentially season-ending, I think, with that shoulder injury. So you'll see Alexander Madison step in. In that same game, you have DeAndre Swift out. Jamal Williams looks like he's set for what could be a full workload. Seems like it will be against the Vikings. So you got kind of two options there. Now, they did price up Madison, 7,600. We talked about a little bit about him, Bobby, and we'll talk a little bit about him more. But let's start at the top. Three running backs, rather, priced up over 8K on this slate. Jonathan Taylor, who has been just ridiculous all year long. Even in Tampa, in a game that didn't necessarily go kind of his way, still managed to find the end zone, 83 yards rushing, still averaged 5.2 yards per carry. He's been incredible. Austin Eckler, it's been kind of more up and down, but has had some boom weeks, and could certainly see that shootout against Cincinnati. He's 8,300. And then Joe Mixon has just been fantastic, especially these last 2 weeks. They've really leaned on him. 30 and 28 carries in Week 11 30 carries in Week 11 against Las Vegas. In Week 12 against Pittsburgh, 28 carries for 165 yards. Got 2 touchdowns in both games. Hasn't scored fewer than 25 fantasy points in any of the last 4 weeks. He's just been ridiculous, all the way up to 8,100 now, highest price tag of the season for him, but he's certainly earned it. And like I said, the Chargers' run defense has been atrocious all year long. Looks like it's all systems go for Joe Mixon here. So, man, all three of these guys, Taylor, Eckler, Mixon, we're going to talk about a lot of running backs in this segment, but right off the bat, if you want to spend, I think all three of these guys are pretty good options, Snyder.
Yeah, I like all three of these guys here. I'm going to start with Jonathan Taylor here. I mean, he gets the ultimate smash spot here. I mean, big favorite in the Dome against a poor rush defense. I mean, I've got him projected 5 points clearer than the next closest guy for him. So he's definitely a top guy for me in this tournament. Like him, Austin Eckler, I've been on him more so. I wrote him up in that Showdown article about the Steelers, and he finally went off. I was like, I hope the Chargers start to utilize him more and get him more involved in the passing game and such. And since then, he's been doing better than that. So I like him there. Joe Mixon, just the price tag's getting up there. I hope that kind of scares some people off. It doesn't look like he's going to be as owned as a lot of these other guys. So I think we can get a lower owned Joe Mixon here in a smash spot. The price tag's up there, but I think it's definitely warranted. I mean, they're just using him as a complete workhorse. He's been the bell cow there. He's getting work in the passing game and the rushing game. Saw 4 targets last week, caught 4 catches, 5 catches the week before, 4 catches the week before that. He's found the end zone in his last 6 games. He's scored 8 touchdowns in his last 5 games, so definitely has the upside there. I mean, I could see another 25 to 35-point game here as he's seen the last 4 weeks from him. So definitely like Mixon and Taylor in this range.
Yeah, I think hard to go wrong here. I could see all three of these guys putting up 25-plus fantasy points. I think Taylor, to me, has the highest upside just because, we think that the volume's going to be there. I also like for Taylor's prospects, against Buffalo, right, where Indianapolis is just running away with that game. We saw them. They couldn't stop him, so they just gave him the ball time after time and let him get those 5 touchdowns. Listen, you can't obviously predict 5 touchdowns, but we could see something similar like that against Houston, right, where Indianapolis just dominates, especially if Marlon Mack is inactive again. Like, they're not going to lean on Nyheim Hines, right, to run the ball. So it's going to be all Taylor throughout the all 4 quarters. I have no problem paying up for 9,200 for him. And I think I prefer Mixon to Eckler, but yeah, all 3 guys I think are really good plays. Bobby, your thoughts on these 3 expensive guys?
Yeah, if I had to rank them, I think I'd go Eckler, Taylor, Mixon. Taylor is obviously the best projected play, but now everyone can kind of build up to Taylor, so you have to weigh the opportunity cost in terms of the ownership. I'd probably come in under on Taylor. Mixon, like I said, like I think there's going to be regression to the mean, so I'm just going to play in terms of like the touchdown equity. Like he'll get over. I think he'll get over the 80. His prop, which is like 80 yards, but maybe we see more of a Burrow game. And then Eckler's like wedged in between, and I think a lot of people are going to be going to Mike Williams to make these like stacks and tournaments work because he's 5'7", and people are kind of trying to chase it. I don't mind Eckler at 8-3. I think he's a guy that he would be my favorite in this range.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Mixon's rushing yards has been going up in the last 4 weeks. I mean, he could just keep stepping up there. I mean, you could pop for 200 this game. I mean, you never know. I mean, he's went over 100 in the last 2 games, 123, 165, 64 the week before that. I definitely like his.
He has a chance to.
I like his ownership. I like his projection compared to his ownership in that fact.
Yeah, like absolutely crushing. I get
the matchup is great against the Chargers. He's at home. And then, I like that we've seen it with Joe Mixon these last couple of weeks where they're like, listen, we'll give you 30 touches if you're rolling. Like there are some running backs or some teams, I guess, where I think they just won't do that, right? Like we're not going to give this guy 30 touches. It's just too much, right? They're worried about injury or something. Clearly the Bengals are not. So if Mixon's rolling, which he absolutely could be in this matchup, they're going to keep feeding him the ball. No question about it. And those are, when you're paying up for a running back, I like to have that ceiling there where they're not going to step off the gas with a player, even if they're doing well, right? Because that's when you get to the top of the million maker, right? When you get to 25 fantasy points and they keep feeding them and you get to 40. You know what I mean? Like you need that kind of big fourth quarter finish, even for a player that's doing well. So I like Mixon quite a bit here. All 3 of the guys, though, I think are very strong plays. Let's go to the 7K range. Delvin Cook out, as we mentioned. He'll be replaced by Madison, who's 7,600 here against Detroit. I think we'll see a lot of people, it's Detroit. They're awful. Again, shiny new toy in Madison. He hasn't disappointed anybody all year long because he hasn't had the chance to. And I think people are, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think people are kind of maybe going to view this as almost a can't-miss spot for Madison. I see it a little bit differently. Najee Harris, workhorse for Pittsburgh, obviously, but tough matchup against Baltimore. Leonard Fournette, the hero of anyone that shipped last week had Leonard Fournette, right? Wasn't 3 or 4% owned, 4 touchdowns, just a monster day. Crushed all the Tom Brady. I had some Tom Brady, crushed me too. And then Cordarrelle Patterson, 7K. Atlanta, like you don't really know how they're going to use Patterson on any given week. I don't know if Atlanta's just weird with him, but obviously has tremendous upside. I was watching that game against the Jaguars, and like the secondary just has no chance against Patterson. He's so big and strong. He's just shoving people away, breaking tackles. Tough matchup against Tampa, but potentially, what are you going to do? Hand the ball in Mike Davis's belly? I don't think that's going to get you back in the game. So you would presume it would be a lot of Cordarrelle Patterson out there for the Falcons in this one. So Patterson, Fournette, Madison, Harris. Bobby, where are you looking here?
Yeah, so I like Fournette again. Like I think that a lot of people won't go back. They're going to go to Brady. I don't mind playing Fournette in Brady stacks. I think that works. I think that would be a way to differentiate him. Madison, I'm not going to be on. Like I knew that was going to be your take. I don't think Madison has the ceiling that people think he has in the spot at 7-6. Like he's going to be someone I think I'm just going to take a complete fade on. And also very bullish on Jefferson. Patterson, I think he's interesting. Like he can catch 6 balls in this game, 6 to 10 maybe if they're playing from behind. And I think if you're playing Brady stacks, you have to consider running back. If you're playing Brady, Evans, and Godwin, you better be running it back with either Patterson or Pitts because that stack in itself is going to be like extremely chalky. So for me, my favorite play and probably the only play in this range that I think I'll have. Well, actually, I'll play Fournette would be my favorite, and then I'll probably play some Patterson.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is mostly a fade range for me as well. I think Patterson's the interesting play, but coming off that big week, I've just seen him kind of fluctuate with his usage so much that a little bit scared to be taking him after a big week, and maybe more people are going to jump on board. So I do think he'll get this. I think Madison will be the highest owned running back in this range, I believe, which, again, I get it. Great matchup against Detroit, but I just kind of think the Vikings, knowing that Kirk Cousins should be able to do his thing, you've got Thielen and Jefferson. I think they'll lean on the passing game. I really do. Been wrong plenty of times in the past, so we'll see. Madison, fine play, but 7,600 just feels a little rich to me. I mean, that's not even like a discount from Dalvin Cook, right? And Madison's he's not the same level of talent that Dalvin Cook is. I don't think his workload is quite as secure either, so a fade there for me with Alexander Madison. I'll start to use Snyder, Najee Harris, Madison, Fournette, Patterson. What are you looking here?
Yeah, I think Harris and Patterson are both going to come in at around 5% or lower, and I don't really have any interest in those guys. I would go to Patterson maybe in some of my Brady run backs if that's the guy I'm going to run it back with, but I'm kind of different than you guys on this Alexander Madison. I have him and Fournette both projected for around 20% ownership, so I think they're both going to come in pretty similar owned. I mean, Fournette's got that people seen it last week, and he's been averaging, 15 or more points for quite a few games in a row. I mean, I can see people going there. Alexander Madison, I actually think this cat is he's not as good as Cook, but I think he's right up there.
He's a good player.
Right up there with him. I mean, I think he's definitely priced. I think he's kind of priced up here, and I hope that kind of turns some people away as we have so many of these lower price running backs that are going to garner much more ownership than Madison. I feel Madison did have 25 carries, had the 100-yard bonus against the Lions in that first matchup, caught 7 passes out of the backfield, had a touchdown receiving. So I definitely think Madison's in line to drop another 30 ball on these Lions here. So I definitely am going to have some Madison this week. And I think that's going to be my only guy in this range outside of some like Cordell run backs or nothing. But I think I'm going to be fading Fournette this week after he broke the slate last week, as I'm going to be going more with my Brady stacks.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, Madison's got 2 starts this year and was tremendous in both of them. So I certainly understand the play. I think I'm going to go with the, just a little bit away from what people are doing and maybe go with the passing attack there. But I have no problem with Madison. You can find him cheaper on some other sites other than DraftKings. So I think maybe I'll get some exposure, Yahoo, something like that. But yeah, that's the 7K range. Let's go to the 6K range. Just a few guys here, really. DeAndre Swift, obviously out. He'll be replaced by Jamal Williams, who's in the 5K range, I believe. Yeah, 5,400 for Jamal Williams. Saquon Barkley returned last week. Or no, he's been back for 2 weeks. But he did see almost every snap, or at least the vast majority against Philly. Had one good run, but other than that, not a whole lot of explosiveness from Saquon. Just 3 yards per carry, caught 4 balls, but only for 13 yards. And now you get, the replacement quarterback. Hey, maybe that helps him a little bit against Miami. But Miami's got a decent defense, so I don't know. I'm not super excited about Saquon this week. Price tag's nice at 6,300. James Robinson is 6,200. Questionable to play against the Rams. I believe he'll be in there. But again, I don't really want to invest much in Jacksonville here. Daryl Henderson, another guy who is questionable. He did practice Friday, 6,100. Saw him last week get another 80% of the snaps and kind of disappoint again. He's been a little bit disappointing to me this year. I think it's been like 25 games of him starting and not a single 100-yard rush game, which is kind of weird. Looks like a talented player when I see him play, but production just hasn't been there. And then Josh Jacobs, also questionable against the football team. He's had some decent games recently, but I kind of think his upside is a little capped. And then finally, Elijah Mitchell for San Francisco. He's the man when he's healthy for San Francisco. 27 carries in back-to-back games. Big game last week against the Vikings, 31 fantasy points. At 6K, he looks like a strong play. So yeah, we'll start with you, Snyder. Barkley, Robinson, Henderson, Jacobs, and Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah, for me in this range, I kind of think we've seen Barkley kind of regress. I kind of think he definitely doesn't look the same in that coming back from that injury, and he kind of made some interesting comments in his post-game press conference the other game. He was talking about how he can see the holes and how he knows he can hit them like he used to, but just doesn't have that extra step at the moment, and hopes he can return to that form. But I'm off on him for right now. James Robinson, I don't think I want to play him in this spot. Daryl Henderson just doesn't look to have that ceiling to get that 100-yard bonus and such, but he does have some work in the passing game and could break one.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be on him in this game. Josh Jacobs is going to be a pass for me as well, but I do like Elijah Mitchell here. He's had the last 2 games, he saw 27 carries, had 133 yards and a touchdown last game, caught 5 passes in the passing game too, so he's getting some usage there. I think this is a great spot for him. He's going to be one of the highest owned guys on the slate, though. I have him right around 30% ownership, but good matchup here. They're a favorite. I like the fact that Shanahan's just going to lean on his running back here. And, I mean, Seattle's looked pretty dusty so far on the defensive side of the ball as well, so I definitely like Elijah Mitchell the most in this range, and I think that's probably about it for me in this range.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Elijah Mitchell looks to me like clearly the best play of this bunch. You know, maybe throw Daryl Henderson in there if he's healthy and good to go. I bet he will. I bet Henderson will end up playing. But just clearly to me, Mitchell has more upside at this point, Bobby. So where are you looking in the 6K range?
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell's probably my favorite running back on the slate, and he's just in such a good spot versus Seattle. It's the late game too, so maybe he doesn't garner as much ownership with everyone being able to get up to Taylor now with the Minshew news. Maybe it kind of knocks down his ownership. I think everyone will play Gibson as the chalk, like 5'7" QB, which we'll get into in a second. But Saquon, I mean, at 6'3", he's 600 more than Gibson, so if you think he can beat Gibson versus Miami, I think he's in play for tournaments. But the only one I'm looking at currently is Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah. Week 12, Saquon did lead all running backs in offensive snap share, out there for 87% of snaps. So he does have that going for him. We'll see if he can perform. I'm kind of betting no in terms of fantasy, at least for Saquon. So, yeah, 3 for 3 on Elijah Mitchell here in the 6K range. Still a lot more running backs to talk about as we move down the pricing spectrum. A strategy question, Snyder, or Bobby, both of you guys, but Snyder, we'll start with you. 3 running backs, running back in the flex, you think tomorrow is probably the optimal way to go? That's kind of the way I see it anyway.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the more popular way, like in cash games and some of these single entries and stuff. And I think rightfully so in those contests, but I think in GPPs, we're looking for like the receivers and such in that flex spot that have that ability to hit that next level and pop off for 35 or 40 in typical game stacks and stuff. But I definitely think that 3 RBs is definitely viable tomorrow, and I'll have quite a bit of that in builds for myself.
Yeah, it depends on each individual roster. Like sometimes you're doing a game stack, you need that extra flex spot for a wide receiver. But I think in cash games, for sure, I think fitting in 3 running backs seems to me the safer, more optimal way to go. Bobby, how do you see it for the Millie Maker using that flex spot tomorrow?
Yeah, I think you made a good point. Cash games, like 3 running backs, definitely.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of has the idea that the receivers on the slate are very thin. I would be trying to build with receivers, and if I did build 3 running backs, I probably would be building. I'd be avoiding a lot of the chalk running backs if I was building with 3 running backs in my lineups. I don't hate going 4 wide receivers though.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, you can always go 4 wide receivers. I do, but like cash games. Go ahead.
No, you can keep going. You keep going.
Yeah. I just think the safety of all those touches in cash games certainly the way to go. But tournaments, I still kind of lean 3 running backs. It's just guys in such good spots. I mean, Elijah Mitchell versus a 6K wide receiver to me is like, I don't know. Give me the 25 touches. You know what I mean? Like for 6K is just ridiculous. So, yeah, we all love Elijah Mitchell here. It seems like pretty much not can't miss, but man, if he stays healthy, it's hard to imagine he doesn't have a pretty big performance. Obviously, Deebo Samuel being out boosts him even more, right? Because Samuel would steal some of those like goal line stuff, right? I mean, Samuel has quite a few rushing touchdowns on the year. Obviously, that's all going to go to Mitchell.
Yeah, last week we saw Washington hit him for 49 points on the running back position, looks like. And Green Bay hit him for 40. The Saints hit him for 38. I mean, they've been getting gashed on the ground all year by some of these rushing attacks. So I definitely think Elijah Mitchell is a good target. Even, I mean, you just got to eat that chalk, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. The 5K running backs, James Conner, Myles Gaskin has had some decent games recently at home against the Giants. You've got Antonio Gibson, again, going to be a very popular play coming off a 29 carry game against Seattle, 111 yards, caught 7 balls as well. J.D. McKissick out. He's their passing game back. So it's unclear exactly how much of that work will go to Gibson, but potentially could be all of it, or, a good majority of it. We don't know for sure. David Montgomery, disappointing game on Thanksgiving, but still a workhorse. He's going to see a bunch of touches here. He's interesting, I think, even against a tough defense there at home against the Cardinals. You've got Devonta Freeman if you want to go there. I don't see myself going there on this particular slate. Jamal Williams, going to get, we think, all the work that he normally gets, which is, 30% of snaps, plus all the DeAndre Swift work. We should see Williams out there a ton against Minnesota. He's 5,400. I think he'll be popular. You've got Miles Sanders, who I think is an interesting play, especially now that Gardner Minshew is under center, because Jalen Hurts, right? Like, Jalen Hurts' best asset is running the ball himself. Kind of takes away from Miles Sanders, and also takes away from a running quarterback. Does oftentimes take away from pass catching from running backs, right? Because the quarterback will just take off instead of dumping it off. Minshew, I think, could potentially get the ball to Sanders more. And then, Jordan Howard already out. If Boston Scott also misses, potentially a Miles Sanders game. Those don't usually work out, but I think this is an interesting spot for him at least. You've got Alex Collins, David Johnson, Ronald Jones, Latavius Murray, rounding out the 5K group. Not super interested in those guys myself, Bobby. So, yeah, a lot of names to talk about here from 5K to 5,900. Who are your favorite guys? Talk a little bit about a couple guys you're looking at.
Yeah, Gibson's the best play in this range, but approaching 40%, it's going to be tough for me to play him. David Montgomery busted on everyone in a primetime slate on Thanksgiving. I don't mind playing him. Think he's an interesting pivot. Connor's up there at 5'9". He's going to come in under 10% ownership. I think he's good leverage off Gibson. There's a lot of guys in this range. You can get different off Gibson. Devonta Freeman in large field, like the 15, like the Millie. I think he's fine at 5'5" with Pittsburgh not having the guys on their defensive line. They're pretty much banged up. Jamal Williams is chalk. I'm not playing. I just feel like I can beat Jamal Williams other ways. At 5'4", what's his ceiling? And then if Miles Sanders was a tough decision for me, if Jalen Hurts had sat, I would have, if Jalen Hurts had played, I probably would have been more inclined to play Miles Sanders if Boston Scott sat. But with Minshew now, I'm just kind of fluctuating in terms of what I actually want to do. I haven't really thought it through. The guy I like a ton, if you live in these hypotheticals in these tournaments, I think that's where we kind of have to play, because the game itself, everyone can see the board as it is right now. It's ever changing, but Sony Michel at 4-3, if he ends up, if we got this, if Daryl Henderson sits and we got the news that Sony was, and we got that news on Thursday, Sony might be approaching between 50 and that's probably too high, but 50 and 40% ownership at 4-3 on this slate. So for me, I'm building with a lot of Sony, hoping at the Henderson news. If I don't get the Henderson news, then I'm going to have swaps ready to kind of get off Sony Michel. But I think he's the play in tournaments that if he, I know the King of the Beach, they don't have late swap. One of our members kind of reached out to me. If you have one lineup, why not take a shot on Sony? Even you're getting paid anyways. You know what I mean? Play for first. If this was Thursday and Henderson was out, he'd be the best running back play on the slate. So I really like Sony Michel. He's my favorite running back of the low-owned running backs on the slate.
Yeah. How confident do you feel in Sony Michel's workload if Henderson sits? You think you just step right in there and play pretty much every down? They don't really have much else, right?
they don't have much else. I think he'd be the guy. And you play him and Henderson plays and it's a 50-50 split. Like you're probably getting off. You don't really want to play that.
Sure.
I wouldn't want to play that. So have your outs. But if he doesn't, if he gets ruled out, Sony's the best play on the slate at the running back position, I think.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I have no real pushback there. 4,300 near minimum price, and at this point, Snyder will just open it up. Anyone below 5K. So, Bobby, you talked about Sony Michel again. If Henderson sits, he becomes an awesome play. I'm with you. Arguably the best running back play on the slate. And I mean, how many late games do we have on this slate? 4 of them. So, like you said, Bobby, you got to have your pivots ready, right? Know where you're going to go if Henderson does end up in there, because I don't think you want Michel at that point. But certainly there are pivots to make, and I think that's a really good strategy point. So, Snyder, anyone else below 5K that you're really looking at a lot here?
Below 5K, not really. I do like that Sony Michel call if he does play. I mean, I hope we get that news like later. I mean, I think he would see.
We will. Yeah.
I mean, against Tampa Bay there earlier this year, he had 20 carries. I mean, I think we could see something similar to that. And he's been kind of working in as the pass game guy too, and seeing, right around 7 targets to 9 targets. He saw 9 catches or 9 attempts against Houston. I think he still sees some work here no matter what. I wouldn't play him unless he was the starter though. But if he was starting, I think he would be just a great play here. Did we go through this the other 5K guys? Or
I didn't throw it to you. So yeah, talk about those guys as well.
Oh yeah, right on. But yeah, I think there's some other very chalky guys here, but some really good spots. I mean, Antonio Gibson looks to be the most popular running back play this week. Rightfully so. Great matchup. He's going to get the full workload, and he's going to definitely be in a great matchup here. I like him a lot. David Montgomery is getting quite a bit of ownership, and I just don't think I'm going to go there at all. So that'll be one of the chalkier guys I'm going to fade. And another guy I'm looking to fade is I'm not going to go to James Conner either, I don't think, in this matchup. I'm seeing him But James Conner is going to be right around that 3% ownership too. I think that's one of the guys I'm going to fade as well. I'm looking to mainly Antonio Gibson. Jamal Williams is in a pretty smash spot there too, as I'm going to be looking to attack a lot of these Vikings guys. So he'll be one of the guys I'm looking to bring it back with there as well.
Sure.
But yeah, Jamal Williams and Antonio Gibson mainly for me in that range. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it'd be interesting to see Miles Sanders kind of go off here as everybody was on him last week. I mean, he's got Minshew there. They may want to lean on the run more this time. So, I mean, that'd be interesting to see Miles Sanders go off this week at probably, maybe 5 to 10% ownership?
Yeah, I like Sanders here, especially if Boston Scott is out. I don't know if I have the guts to go to if Scott is in, but if Scott's out, Howard's out, they don't really seem to like Gainwell that much, right? Oh, hey, we got a visitor here.
Yeah, visitor.
Nice. Love to see it. Yeah, so that's running back.
Hey, y'all.
Throwing for a bit of a loop there. What's going on, man?
Hold on.
Who's in?
I'm on my phone.
Oh, here we go. The 3-time Millie Maker winner. This is good. This is the Millie show. We need this.
Yeah. We need the goods here, man.
What kind of questions do you guys want to ask me? You got 10 minutes.
We got
10
questions.
minutes. All right.
10 minutes.
Hit him up, Bobby.
Who do we like for running backs? Who are your running backs?
Hold on a second.
It's cutting into the 10 minutes.
I don't know. I just got a bad feeling about Antonio Gibson because the Raiders defense, that place is loud. That's tough. I can see just the Washington football team just kind of going shit.
Yeah, no, I get you.
I don't know. He's just so chalky. His props are okay. Jamal Williams, he's chalk. His props are horrible. I don't know why people like him. I'm just going to play. The best play to me is I'm going to have a lot of Mitchell because I know 49ers love to run the ball, and Seahawks just got torched by the who do they just play? The Redskins, the Washington football team.
Yeah,
they just got torched by the running back. So I think you can for sure more say that Eli Mitchell, he's lower and more safe. So I think he's the best running back play.
Yeah, all four of us now on the Eli Mitchell train. So that's I
mean, it makes sense. Madison's price is just a lot of money. I mean, 7,600. Can he get you 30? I mean, they're gonna throw. If I would play Cousins, I would just single stack him. It's very rare that you can pay off the price tag for Thielen and Jefferson.
DC always has DC doesn't like Madison. I'm with DC. DC gets this call right. Like I remember a couple of weeks back, like 2 weeks in a row, DC got fading the chalk, like 7K running back that was going to get all the work correct. So it's nice that.
Well, whoever you play at running back this week, you're fading some popular plays, right? Because there are a lot of guys to go to, obviously, at the position. But we wrap up this position the same way we did quarterback. Our favorite play, the guy we'll have most exposure to in our Millie Maker lineups. Snyder, we'll start with you on this question this time.
I'm going to probably go with Joe Mixon here. I mean, he's projecting as the lowest owned. That's all these guys. I have him projected as the 7th highest owned guy. I mean, the price tag's up, but I think that's warranted. I mean, I think he's going to smash here again like he has been. I think he's going to find the end zone a couple more times here as he has the last 6-7 games. I mean, I like Mixon for that format. The other guy I'm really close to would be Eli Mitchell as well. I mean, we know he's going to get 25-plus carries. He's probably going to see work in the passing game again like he did last week. I think he's going to get inside the box once or twice. So that's where I'm at.
Makes sense. Yeah, I like those guys as well. Bobby, your favorite running backs for tomorrow's Millie Maker?
Yeah, it's going to be Mitchell and Sony Michel.
Like it. Yeah. I'll join in on the Mitchell train. I do really like Mixon as well. But I'll throw Miles Sanders in the mix if Boston Scott is out. I think he's going to be an interesting play. I like the quarterback change, I like the matchup against the Jets. And he could get a ton of work if the scenario kind of does go down in that fashion. All right, guess who you got? Running back, favorite plays.
I'm going to say Mitchell. It's just the best pivot, and he's the best play, best props off these two. I see right now Antonio Gibson's 28%. I mean, there's no way he's 28% to be the top 2, top 3 running back.
Sure.
I just don't see it that way. I would say Eli Mitchell. And maybe depending on Boston's Scott news, I think Miles Sanders can be really sneaky play.
Love it. All right, we're on the same page on that one. Let's jump to wide receiver next. As always, tons of options here. Deebo Samuel out for San Francisco. That's obviously big news. But for the most part, a relatively healthy position, at least compared to what we've seen recently. Cooper Kupp stands alone at the top. The only guy 9K or above. He is 9K flat, coming off of another good game. Cooper Kupp really only seems to have good games. Obviously, matchup is tremendous against Jacksonville. If you want to pay up, he's a great option. Justin Jefferson next highest at 8,200. Keenan Allen in that potential shootout in Cincinnati, 7,500. Terry McLaurin, 7,400. You've got Adam Thielen, 7,300. So the Vikings do have two of the top 5 priced wide receivers, along with I think a top 6 priced running back. So expensive team this week. Jamar Chase, 7K. So we'll go 7K and above. Snyder, will you start with this one?
Yeah, I've got quite a few guys here I'm looking at. On my page isn't loading, but yeah, I like Cooper Kupp the best here. I mean, this is a good spot for him. I mean, we can afford to pay for him now with some of these other value spots at the quarterback and some of these value running backs. So I think it's going to be pretty easy to get Cooper Kupp in there. But definitely like Justin Jefferson with all my Kirk Cousins stacks. I mean, Jefferson, like I've said, is on this another level. So I definitely like him. I mean, Keenan Allen's just been smashing. I mean, him him and Justin Herbert look to have quite the chemistry going right here. So I definitely like Keenan Allen as well. And Terry McLaurin's kind of priced higher on DraftKings. I like him more so on FanDuel as he has a softer price tag on there, but I think he's got this good matchup here against the Raiders. And we talked about liking Heineke earlier in the quarterback session, so I definitely like going there. I mean, Jamar Chase, if you want to pair him up with Burrow, I mean, Chase hasn't seen the upside he did earlier in this year, but I think this is a great spot for him to kind of go off here against the Chargers, who have gave up some big games to some wide receiver number one. So I think there's quite a few options here that we can go to. I mean, I think Cooper Kupp's kind of in his tier above everybody else. I have him projected for like nearly 5 points ahead of the next guy. So I think he's definitely in an island by himself. He's going to see some ownership, but Justin Jefferson would be my next best guy in this range.
I like to make a point with the Kupp. I think if you play Kupp, you should only single stack him with Stafford. It's going to be very hard for them to get the other guys to get there if Kupp hits his ceiling. Just the point.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And we got just because he's so expensive, right? He has to do so much at 9K.
He probably needs 2 touchdowns, 8 receptions for like 150 yards or something.
Yeah, which I'm gonna double stack Cousins with Jefferson and Thielen, so it kind of just goes against that a little bit. But hey, it's a million make. You got to take some chances. So yeah, I'm in on Jefferson, Thielen. I do prefer Jefferson over Thielen, just more upside. But Thielen has that nose for the end zone, 10 touchdowns already on the year, and so you can get there on a little bit less volume, where it's Jefferson maybe getting the receptions and the yards throughout the game. Bobby, what are you looking at with the wide receivers above 7K?
Yeah, I love Jefferson. Kind of said that a couple times on the show. Like at his price tag, 8,200, he's just falling in no man's land. And if it ends up being the best raw points play on the slate, like he beats Taylor, he beats Madison, he beats Kupp. You have that touchdown prop with Cousins. Like it's very strong. I love Justin Jefferson. I'm gonna have a lot of him. Yeah, if he gets a ceiling game and beats those guys, you're gonna have a lot of winning teams if you're rostering Justin Jefferson. And then Chase at 7K, I think he's interesting with a lot of people with the Joe Mixon love. Kupp's obviously a fantastic play. Like I like Kupp. But if I had to rank him, I'd probably go Jefferson, Kupp, Chase would be my 3.
Yeah.
I think
I like it. RBX, where are you looking at the 7K plus range? And am I crazy to double stack Cousins with Thielen and Jefferson? Can you talk me out that?
It's probably not smart to do that on FanDuel. You might be able to get it away with it on DK it's just going to be really tough to get that paid off. But they're two really expensive. I almost rather double stack Godwin and Evans with Brady because they're both in the 6Ks. It's 8,200 and I think 7,300 for Cousins. It's tough.
It's tough for sure. Yeah, you got to get all Cousins touchdowns basically running through Thielen and Jefferson. Could happen, but
it could. It's happened before.
Yep.
But in the 7K range, you asked me.
Yeah. Yep.
7 to Kupp, so 7 to 9.
Oh, okay. I would say my 3 are Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, and Scary Terry.
Oh, I forgot McLaurin's I like McLaurin. McLaurin's it's Jefferson, McLaurin. I skipped over.
Shut up, dude. You're not that good.
I talked to you on McLaurin before this show earlier today.
McLaurin's going to be the lowest owned guy in this range as well, right around 3 to 5%, I think.
McLaurin's the best. Everyone's playing. It's Jefferson and McLaurin. They're the 2.
I'll tell you now, if Gibson duds and Washington scores a lot of points, Scary Terry's going to get like 40.
I could see it. Yeah.
We've been talking. Me and him were talking about this earlier today. Like McLaurin's an unbelievable play. Same thing with Jefferson. They're great leverage plays in the slate. Yeah.
That's why I like the Vikings basket, or part of the reason why I like it so much is I think a lot of people are going to go to Madison. I'll go the other direction. So that's a 7K plus wide receivers. Let's go to the 6K range. A bunch of guys here. Target monster, Deontay Johnson. You've got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, both sitting in that mid 6K range. DK Metcalf and Lockett. Again, both guys, 6,500, 6,700. if you think Russell Wilson and that Seattle offense can bounce back. I kind of have my doubts a little bit about that. Hollywood Brown at 6,500. You've got Jalen Waddle, who is clearly the number one guy right now in Miami, getting a ton of work from Tua Tagovailoa. DeAndre Hopkins, if he's in there, is 6,200. Devonta Smith, and then Chase Claypool. So a bunch of pairs of wide receivers, both Pittsburgh guys, both Seattle guys, and both Tampa guys, Evans and Godwin, in the 6 to 7K range. RBX, we'll start with you this time. Where are you looking in the 6K range for wide receivers?
Definitely Godwin and Evans, and I think that's probably. I don't like too many guys, to be honest.
Okay.
Maybe
are you off of Seattle?
Nah, not really. I mean, I checked all their props; they're all really bad, and I just like Evans and Godwin in this range, and that's pretty much it for me. Maybe take a shot on Devonta Smith.
Yeah,
I like the Smith.
Yeah, we'll see with Minshew.
He's gonna be 1%. I mean, even if you're playing 150, take 5%. You know.
To me, the Hurts to Minshew is a downgrade maybe for the Eagles' offense as a whole, but I kind of like the pass catchers a little bit better. I think Minshew might be a better thrower of the ball than Jalen Hurts is at this point. And then you also have, Hurts runs it in for so many scores, and that kind of can
right. That's why I said back to Sanders.
Yeah,
is that Hurts just kills all the running backs that.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's my thinking too. So I kind of think the Eagles guys, Minshew is going to be super popular, but I kind of like the skill position guys there a little bit as well. Snyder, your thoughts here on the 6 to 7K wide receivers?
Yeah, I'm gonna be liking these Tampa Bay guys for sure here. I mean, Chris Godwin's gonna be one of the more higher owned guys on this slate, but I think if you pair him with Evans, it's gonna be kind of unique, as not as many people are gonna play that double. I'm seeing Mike Evans coming in at probably right around a third the ownership of Chris Godwin, so I like pairing those two guys up with Brady as my top stack overall. I definitely do like that Devonta Smith. I'm seeing him right around 1% owned. I mean, Minshew's going to chuck. I mean, I talked about Minshew. He threw 37 touchdowns to 11 interceptions in the 20 starts in Jacksonville, so he's definitely going to chuck here. So I like going to Devonta Smith there. I'm going to be looking at probably Jalen Waddle again. I mean, he's just been target machine this whole year. I mean, he's coming off that 9-catch, 137-yard and a touchdown game last week. Him and Tua are kind of syncing up. I like that combination there. I'm going to be avoiding these Pittsburgh and Baltimore guys like I talked about earlier. I mean, I just don't see that game shooting out whatsoever, and I just don't want to be spending this price tag for these guys. I mean, Deontay Johnson, he's probably going to still catch 7 or 8 passes. I don't know if he'll hit that 100-yard bonus, but it's probably going to be crucial for him to pay off that price tag. But I'm just mainly fading those, and I'm going to be fading these Seattle pass catchers as well, as I'm not going to be playing Russ, so I'm definitely not going to be playing these pass catchers.
Yeah. It seems like we're all kind of off the Seahawks this week. It's always interesting when you get like a backup quarterback, right? We haven't really seen Minshew. I don't think we've seen him at all play for the Eagles, so you don't really know for sure who his number one wide receiver or target's going to be. You kind of assume it's the same guy, but it doesn't always work out that way. So if you wanted to get a little bit different, a Quez Watkins, maybe we'll get to tight end, but Dallas Goddard, I think, could potentially have a big game playing 100% of the snaps, basically. So some different ways to go. But yeah, Devonta Smith, obviously the talent's there, and could see more work than he sometimes does. So that's the 6K range for wide receivers. Let's jump to the 5K range, Bobby. I'll go right back to you. Or no, I don't think I let you talk about the 6K guys. I'm thrown off by the 4-man booth here, so go ahead.
Yeah,
Bobby.
the 4-man booth can be. It's all right. You're manning this ship. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, Godwin Evans. I personally think Godwin seems like he's going to be the chalk in this range. Like for me, prior to the Minshew news, I thought that Godwin Evans stack would be really chalky and have to run it back with someone from Atlanta. I think one of the rules that I'm building into my lineups is I want at least one of Fournette, especially with the their team total just bumped up a little bit, almost 2 points. I'm gonna have a rule that has like at least one of Godwin, Evans, or Fournette in pretty much every one of my lineups. But so I like both those guys. I think you can play them without Brady, to be honest, because I think they're paying down. There's interesting options. Like if you had done like the Tyreek, Kelsey without Mahomes earlier in the year. Yeah, and then 6K. I don't mind Deontay Johnson. In terms of like Lockett and Metcalf, these guys have to get going at some point. And if you want to differentiate Mitchell, maybe running one of them back isn't the worst play. Chase Claypool and Devontae Smith, I think, are also both interesting. Like Claypool versus Baltimore secondary, their secondary has been horrible. So Marquise Brown and Claypool would be an interesting secondary correlation that I'd consider playing. And Devontae Smith's going to get priced up, and he can take the top off the defense. And he's right at 6,100 in a range of all chalk running backs. So he's someone you have to consider. This range is actually more interesting than what I originally thought. So I think you have to pay a lot of attention to it.
Yeah, I think that's certainly true. We got to keep it moving a little bit. So let's open it up a little bit. I won't list off all the guys below 6K. But RBX, give me just like 2-3 guys maybe that you're looking at, cheaper wide receivers, run backs. Just any thoughts on some of the cheaper wide receivers?
Also, another thing, for some reason, Michael Pittman's really low. I mean, the guy's gonna get 7+ targets versus a bad Texans defense. I think that's really good leverage off of this pricey Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he needs 30+ points to get that. So I like the Pittman at 5,700. Maybe in the run backs in the Tampa, you can, if you're doing like 10 Brady's, you can do 2 with like Russell Gage. He has decent props. Not really a fan of like Hunter Renfro. I see he's pretty chalky on DraftKings. But as far wide receiver, I'm just gonna stick to that like 5K range, and then the few that I liked up top.
Yeah, makes sense. Snyder, what are you looking at in this 5K range?
5K range for me, mainly looking to, I don't mind that Michael Pittman call there. I mean, he saw 10 targets last week, didn't do a thing with them, but I mean, it could be coming here. I mean, that's a good leverage play off of
yeah, I like that
running
call
back there.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah, Brandon Ayuk, I think he's a solid play here. I mean, he's going to see a lot of the work here. I mean, he's slowly been incorporated more into this offense as the weeks have gone on here lately, and I think this is a good spot for him to pop here as another guy is leverage off of another chalky running back. So I think we could go there. Some other guys I'm looking at is Hunter Renfro. I mean, you know what you're going to get from him. You're going to get 15 to 20 points from him. It's kind of like clockwork at this point. I think he's fine, especially for like your smaller field contests and stuff. Josh Reynolds is fine. I think he's more of a punt type guy. If you're looking for a run back in that Vikings game, I'd be looking towards him.
I think Reynolds is clearly the wide receiver that you want on Detroit. He's cheaper, and he's just more explosive than Khalif Raymond and who's St. Brown. Obviously has kind of a history with Goff, and presumably kind of getting more and more comfortable every week. Obviously traded over from the Titans, right? So yeah, Josh Reynolds, 3,400. I'm obviously pretty big on the Vikings, and he is the preferred run back for me. Mm-hmm. Bobby, other guys?
The last guy I'd be looking at would be Russell Gage as well. Like he mentioned, I'd be looking at him as a run back in that Tampa Bay stacks. He's my preferred option as a run back in that stack.
Cool. Yeah, Bobby, other cheaper wide receivers, any off-the-board guys you're looking at?
Yeah, love the Pittman call. RBX led the league in air yards last week. He's at 5.7. Like people are saying like this isn't a good wide receiver stack. Like the more you dive into it, the wide receivers are, I think, more of the way to go. If all this, the opportunity costs of running back in the chalk bust, these guys who play all these running backs are in a ton of problems. They're going to have a ton of issues. Mike Williams, 5.7, like him. Think he's interesting. Ayuk's going to be very chalky at 5.6. I can't get a feel for Ayuk. Like, is he a good play? Is he not? He's been great. Every time I roster him, he sucks. Darnell Mooney, 5.6. He's over 100 yards last 2 games. He's a good play. Like Beckham's down there. I don't know if I want to shoot for Beckham again. Yeah, the Gage call. Kenny Galladay, like Dolphins D is going to be chalk. Galladay's absolutely atrocious, but at 5K, people aren't like it makes for interesting leverage, and that's pretty much it.
I'll leave Kenny Galladay with Mike Glennon as the quarterback to just.
Glennon is quarterback. Yeah, you're probably right. It's probably.
I'll be lining up Miami defense against him.
All right.
RBX like food. Where do you go?
Looks like he's gone. Right?
Yeah, his dog was freaking out, I think.
It was nice of him to grace us with his presence, but we're back to the 3-man booth. I'm back in my comfort zone, Bobby. A 3-man booth. This is all I can handle. So that's wide receiver. Obviously, a ton of different ways to go. I think more so than running back, you see wide receivers attached to quarterbacks, right? Especially when you're building Millie Maker. So it's a little bit more difficult to pin it down. It kind of depends on who you're rostering, your quarterbacks, your run backs, all that kind of thing at the wide receiver position, but obviously a ton of options to go with. All right, tight end. So, big news, Darren Waller out. I think Foster Moreau, his direct replacement, going to be maybe the most popular tight end, 2,700, going to see all the snaps, it looks like. Decent athlete, just hard to get on the field when Darren Waller's in front of you. So he's interesting. Interested to hear your guys' take on Foster Moreau and how chalky he'll be. Expensive guys, Mark Andrews, 6K, only guy playing over 6K. Kittle, 5,900, coming off a week where he caught a grand total of 1 pass on 2 targets. They really haven't been using him much in the passing game, been more of a blocker, which I don't really see a reason why that would change. We're all kind of on that Elijah Mitchell train. You've got Kyle Pitts, who's been very, very disappointing, still has all the talent in the world, but not doing a lot with it these last few weeks. Zach Ertz has been good for Arizona. Gronkowski looks like he's back playing well for Tampa. I think he's an interesting play even at 5,300. Hawkinson, 5,200. I do like him quite a bit as a run back to Minnesota passing attack if you're on that like I am. Gesicki, 5,100. He's always got TV upside. So we'll cut it off at the 5K plus. I don't really think any of these guys are going to be super highly owned. So interested to hear your take on it, Snyder, on the expensive tight ends. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think any of these guys are really going to see much ownership outside of Gronk. I mean, I could see Gronk getting to like 10 to possibly 15% ownership in this range. I mean, he's been pretty good here coming back. He looks to be rejuvenated. I mean, Brady's looking to him quite often this year. I think this makes for a good spot for him. Good matchup here with the high price total and the team total is up there. Kyle Pitts is a run back in that Tampa Bay stack if you wanted to go there, but I mean, we just haven't seen much out of that from Pitts. I mean,
I have a hard time paying for Kyle Pitts right now.
Yeah. I mean, he's still seeing, 5, 6, 7 targets a game, but he's just not doing absolutely anything with them. I mean, the way to beat Tampa Bay is through the air, but I just don't know if I can pay that price tag for him. Mark Andrews at 6.0. He's only coming in at like 1% owned. I mean, if I was going to play a Baltimore guy, it might be Mark Andrews. I could actually see him in this type of a game scenario, just being a tough, rugged game. I mean, I could see him catching 7 balls for 100 yards and a touchdown here. I mean, I could definitely see that
targets. So. Yeah, 10 plus targets in 3 of the last 4, 8 the game he didn't. So certainly the volume's been there. Yeah,
I think that's an option here. I mean, TJ Hawkinson's another guy if you want to bring back that Minnesota stack, but I don't think I'm going to get there as I'm just looking for some of these other guys a little lower and cheaper versus him. So, I mean, mainly in this range, it's going to be Gronk if I go for anything. And if I go up past Gronk, I'm just going to go straight up to Mark Andrews at the top, and I don't think he's going to be owned at all. I think we're going to see him under 5% for sure.
Yeah, I like that call. Bobby, your thoughts here? Expensive tight ends?
Yeah, I think Pitts is interesting with Brady, Godwin, Evans, run backs. Gronkowski's fine. He's 5,300. He's chasing that 100-yard game for Tony Gonzalez. I think people are going to play him. Kittle should be great. 5,900 is cheap for Kittle. Like, I didn't realize how cheap that is. That's interesting leverage just from a pricing standpoint off that whole range. And you can make the same case for Andrews. I don't know how much I'm going to get to those guys.
Yeah. So many running backs to pay up for. You've got obviously some of the high-end wide receivers. I like Gronkowski, I think, the best in this group. Maybe Hawkinson, but yeah, I don't think any of these guys are going to be overly owned. Let's go to the cheap tight ends. I think that's the way most people will go. I like Dallas Goddard. Again, I kind of think those Philly pass catchers could see a big game against the Jets with Gardner Minshew at the helm. Can certainly get a cheap stack there. Minshew and Goddard is 8.5 total for the two of them. So that's interesting to me. Freiermuth has been good for Pittsburgh, obviously. Again, I'm mostly off that game, but he's been a touchdown machine when given an opportunity. Logan Thomas going to return for Washington. Yeah, he was very involved before getting hurt. Had a good season last year as well. So he's interesting at 4K. You've got Higbee, Everett, Conklin, Cole Kmet. Big game on Thanksgiving, and with Andy Dalton under center, I think that helps Kmet a lot. I think he's somewhat interesting to me at 3,600. So yeah, I mean, a number of ways you can go. Cheap tight end is always a popular route. And then Foster Moreau, I talked about him at the start of the position. Going to get the, he's not Darren Waller, but we'll be out there for, I think, almost every snap. And 2,700, decent matchup against the football team. I get the chalk there, but yeah, always a little hesitant to play the cheap tight end chalk. Snyder, your thoughts on the rest of the cheap tight ends here?
Yeah, I don't mind that Cole Kmet call there. I mean, he did it against the Ravens, but the other two games he had 14 points, so I definitely think that's in play here. The main guys are going to be Foster Moreau. He went 6 for 60 and a touchdown, and the last time he was in this situation, I expect something, maybe not that much. I mean, it depends if he gets in the end zone or not, but I could definitely see him catching 5 or 6 balls here for sure. If you want to look for a guy even $100 cheaper than him, and it's going to be, I don't even think he's going to be like 4% or 4 times less percent owned. But James O'Shaughnessy, he was imported into the lineup last week. Only played 59 snaps of the 73 after what's his name? The other tight end went down, but he see 5 targets right away. I mean, they just plugged him in there, and they just threw him in there, and he threw the ball to him. So I think that's an interesting option here against this Rams defense. They're going to be throwing the ball quite a bit in that game. They're 2 touchdown underdogs, so I don't mind going there. Mainly Foster Moreau for me in this range. I mean, we got Conklin right there. If you want to have a cheap double with Cousins, you can go with like Jefferson, Orthiesen, and Conklin for a cheaper double. I mean, that's in play, I think. That's about it for me here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It gets a little thin once you get, way down the pricing spectrum. Bobby, your thoughts on the cheap tight ends here?
Yeah, like Moreau, you just have to play him thoughtfully. Like, don't play him with Jamal Williams, Taylor, or Gibson, Taylor. Like, he's one. I usually axe these cheap tight ends, but he gets usage when Waller plays. So, like, he's a little better, I think, than the majority of cheap tight ends that we get in these spots. CJ Uzomah is someone I like a lot at 3,200. Chargers can't cover tight ends. I think he makes sense. Cole Kmet, 36. He's fine. Logan Thomas, another guy who I think is leverage off Antonio Gibson. So in tournaments, I have interest. And Higbee's down at 3,800. I think he makes for a good play.
Love it. Yeah, love those calls. You will see a lot of people go to Moreau. Good play, but again, we've seen cheap tight ends bust plenty in the past, so not like a slam dunk. But 2,700 obviously can't hurt you.
You're scaring me. I don't know what to do with them. I can't figure out what to do with them.
Yeah, well, you'll let me know. Let me know what you
You let me know. You let me know. I'm confused.
I'm probably gonna fade Foster Moreau, to be honest. But yeah, let's wrap up tight ends with our favorite ones. Snyder, we'll let you start here. Favorite tight end for the Millie Maker tomorrow?
For the Millie Maker, I'm going to go with Mark Andrews because he's going to be the lowest owned, and I think he's got the biggest ceiling of all these guys. They're right up there. I mean, so for a Millie Maker type build, I would be looking at Mark Andrews or maybe even that James O'Shaughnessy. I mean, you could probably even play both O'Shaughnessy and Foster Moreau if you want. If you want to play that Cousins double, that'll free up some salary for you there to get some other guys in there or something. I'm not sure if anybody will do that, so that's interesting.
Love it. Bobby, your favorite tight end for tomorrow?
Logan Thomas. I think he's
Logan Thomas. All right. Yeah. I think he'll just step right back in there in like the 100% role, right? So that's a good play, good call on Logan Thomas. I'm going to go Dallas Goddard again. Been playing like 100% of the snaps for Philly ever since they traded Zach Ertz. It just hurts. Traded Zach Ertz, but Ertz just doesn't throw him the ball. He's not accurate enough. Maybe Minshew is. We just don't know for sure. And I think Goddard's got a lot of talent. He's going to be out there. Good matchup against the Jets. I like his chances at 4,500 to deliver. And I think he'll be kind of low owned. I think people are going to be a little gun shy to play Eagles outside of Gardner Minshew, which is almost seems backwards, but it's obviously just kind of a pricing thing there. So that's tight end. We'll wrap it up with defense. We can probably make this relatively short and sweet. We don't need to spend a ton of time on defense. Obviously, I think the approach to defense that we all take and most smart, good players take, right? You don't really want chalk defenses. You don't really necessarily want to pay up too much if you can avoid it. And you especially don't want to pay up for chalk defenses. It doesn't seem like a good way to go. So with that said, Bobby, pick a couple defenses that you're thinking about playing tomorrow in your own teams.
Yeah, Dolphins D is the one that DC's kind of hinting at. They're going to be the cash game defense. I'm just going to totally X them.
Yeah.
I like the Rams D because I like to play Sony.
Sure.
It's kind of how I have it built in. I think it correlates. You're paying up to 4K, but you also have Jacksonville coming across country. And if you're getting a cheap running back, why not? And then the 49ers defense, I think I have interest in. Russell hasn't been great. Correlates with Mitchell. I'll tell you that, like the high total games, like a lot of these, there aren't a lot of low defenses to kind of pay down for. But these defenses in higher total games that might be cheaper, like the Washington Oakland game, I think you can make a case for those guys. It's pretty much my thoughts on defense.
Yeah. Dolphins 3,300 against the Giants. And it makes sense that a lot of people would want to go in that direction, but like I just very hesitant to eat the chalk in defense, especially in the Millie Maker. Some that I'm looking at, I don't mind the Las Vegas Raiders defense at home here. Going to be loud, and I just don't think – I know you're on Heineke, people are on Gibson, but that's part of the reason why I want to do it. So I think so many people are going to be on Gibson. They shut him down, keep him out of the end zone. They got a chance. They're pretty cheap as well at 2,800. I like the Rams call if you're paying all the way up. And then I do like the Ravens a little bit against fat-ass Roethlisberger who can't move. Ravens defense, they were kind of shaky at the beginning of the year, but they've shorted up recently. And rough and tumble game. I could see it going south for Roethlisberger. If that happens, you've got to think the Ravens are going to play well. So I like them a little bit at 3,400. All right, Snyder, wrap it up for us with defense. Who are you looking at?
Yeah, I like the Ravens there. They're priced a little bit over the chalk Miami defense, and I think Big Ben could be in for it here. I mean, he's looking awfully dusty these days, and the Ravens are getting a little more healthy, and they're starting to get the defense figured out this year. Like that. I kind of like the Eagles a little bit. They've scored double-digit points in 3 of their last 5 games on defense. I think they could give some troubles to the Jets there. I do like the
Zach Wilson just so bad. I like the Eagles too.
Yeah,
it's just a play against Wilson, right? It's just miserable.
Yeah, he's going to throw a few interceptions there. Yeah. I do like the chalk defense though on the Dolphins. I mean, they've just been playing so good these last 3 or 4 games. I mean, they've put up 23, 18, 17 here recently. So I definitely think they're in play here against this dusty Mike Glennon here. So, but they're going to be right around 20% owned, which is worrisome. I mean, but some other guys I'll be looking at would be I'm not really looking at much here down low. I mean, maybe like the Washington defense I could see going there or Chicago. But if Chicago defense there, I mean, that's not bad if Murray comes back and he's not 100% or if they put the other guy out there.
Yeah, a week and a half there for the Bears too, playing on Thanksgiving, so a little extra rest at home. You get a dome team coming into Chicago, right? Which
it's gonna be cold weather there probably.
Yeah. So that makes some sense. So that's defense. Obviously, I would advise kind of mixing it up with defense, just based on your team, based on what fits. Just be smart with it. Don't go overboard on one defense. I've tried that before, and it usually doesn't work out. So I like to mix and match defense with my rosters as I build. All right, guys, that's 90 minutes of Saturday night football talk. We had a special guest, and we did it. So we got, of course, as a free show. Thanks for listening. As always, again, hit that like, hit the subscribe, and you won't miss any content that we have coming out because we got a lot of it at Run Pure Sports. You can use promo code RPSHeater25 if you want to sign up with us. I don't think you'll regret it. Should be a fun Sunday. Tons of content out tonight, tomorrow. Get over to runpuresports.com. Check it out. And, we'll hope to get to the top of the leaderboards tomorrow. So thanks for listening, everybody. For Snyder, for Bobby, I'm DC. We'll check you next time.